brand is one thing, but it's actually part of communication and keeping communication consistent with a memory that you're trying to form. But then you just touched on the experience, which is actually the customer experience, or CX, and how that actually is impacted not just through smart thinking to make the journey better for the customer or the customer experience or service better, but it actually relates to the brand as well.
Yeah.
So customer experience, or CX, for the fancy term, what does that mean now, particularly when we're designing things from a digital point of view?
Yeah. I think customer experience is increasingly becoming central, and brand theory is starting to move away almost that you debrand your product. There's other reasons why you do that, but the fact that it doesn't really matter who you are, it's the service that you provide that is critical. And your brand is almost defined by your customer's response to the service you provide, whether it's, in the case of Apple, you make a computer that just does not break down, and that generates positive word of mouth. So it's almost like there's things that you can do as a company to articulate the brand. But it's like an author with a book. Once it goes out into the world, pre-internet, just to rewind slightly, pre-internet, in the old days, all brand was about was impressions. So the number of print impressions you make with people, over time that creeps in someone's mind, and then you start to think, I don't know, back in the day it would have been cigarette brands or something like that. Now, because of the internet and because everyone can feed back on your performance 24/7 around the world, how you deliver the services you deliver, how good the product you have is, or how reliable it is, how fit it is for purpose, is what it's all about. So it's funny because the actual print, the actual visual part of it is still important.
Yeah.
But it's only one part of the toolkit now, whereas before it was most of it.
When we think of website design, I say to you, website design, the average person just instantly thinks of a picture of a laptop and a website on it.
Yeah.
Whereas in fact, people interacting with a website, over more than 50% of that interaction is actually on a mobile device.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not on a desktop. So which is why we now interact with making sure design is done from a mobile first perspective.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that'd be really interesting for people, they don't understand yet that more sales and e-commerce transactions are completed on a mobile device than on a desktop. So making sure that your shopping cart works perfectly on a mobile device is actually more important than making sure it looks beautiful on desktop.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So how do you go about approaching a design? Like, what's different about a mobile design versus a desktop design?
So homepage is critical, and just by virtue of how people scroll, you need to think about how you're going to chunk your information up, where it sits on the page, where your content blocks are. Also keeping the layout interesting as you move down just visually. If everything is one place and it's just text, maybe with alternating backgrounds, people won't stop.
Okay.
It's just important to break it up so that you've got things that people can interact with, they can slide things backwards and forwards. But just thinking about what your key messages are and where they go. And also, as you move down the page, just making sure that you do break up what you're saying carefully, and that visually there are reasons for your eyes to stop. Because you're almost absorbing the page with your eyes before your brain engages with the actual words. Okay. So there's a stage where you need to think, oh, that's interesting, I'll stop and read that. If you look at people, I look at people on the tram all the time, and it's fascinating to see how they consume social media feeds. It's like, no, yes, yeah. And you start to think, why did they stop there? And it's all of that sort of thinking. It's unconscious. You can't. And
so that's why the mobile design is so important to understand the flow.
Yeah.
It's not about taking a design you've done for desktop and then forcing it to fit into a mobile.
No, you need to think of it the other way around. It's like you do the mobile first. You write the content so that it's going to be engaging. It's short. It gets people engaged. And it's almost like your homepage is a taster. If people want to read more, then okay, you've got them. They're clicking on links or tapping on links on the homepage, and then they can dive into more detail once they get 2 and 3 layers into the site.
Touching there on kind of the navigational journey and the user journey. So what's user experience?
So the user experience is basically what it says on the tin. It's the experience of the user has when interacting with the site. So we have customer journeys. So typical, when you look at the information you want to put in front of people, it's like the most commonly trodden paths through the site, and making it very easy to do that. So, UX is something we can obviously get into. Our UX specialists could talk about it in more detail at another time.
That'd be fantastic.
But in basic terms, it's making it easy for the user to get the information you want them to see as quickly as possible with as few clicks or bumps in the road as possible.
Yeah. In summary, small business owner looking to do a website, or even a larger business owner for that matter, looking to start designing a website, what things should they look out for when they're approaching either an agency or a designer or getting it done internally? What are the key things that they should do? What's the website build process look like?
So I think it's important that the agency gets to know you properly, and I know that you always know your business better than the agency. That's just kind of a given. But it's good to have an initial meeting to just work out what your key messages are. Have a look at any current sites you've got, stuff you don't like, stuff you want to keep.
So once you've got your sitemap fully fleshed out and you've added all the different pages that you want to have included within that new website, what's the phase from there, once that's been locked in?
So then we go to something called a wireframe, and what that is it doesn't have any colour on it, because colour can be a distraction, or any words. So what it is, it's basically black and white layout, just showing where content will sit, and what that forces you to focus on, especially if you're not a designer, which, why would you be coming to something if you are? It shows you how the pages will work, so where the content will sit. You can see that where your messages are, how as a user you would move up and down a page without being distracted by what's actually there.
Fantastic.
It's just a good way of getting the flow of information correct without getting distracted by the information.
So it allows
itself.
you to kind of also delve in a little bit to the function and understand purely just from a flow, how's it going to work, where content block's going to go, and for the different page layouts for...
Exactly. You can see where calls to action are. It's a chance to modify that and make sure that everything, the one or two messages you want to push are front and centre, and where you want them to be front and centre.
I suppose this is the other thing about, like we said at the beginning, what are the best things to do for a small business when engaging with a designer or a web development company or an internal, is making sure, by the sounds of it, there's opportunities for feedback to make sure it's on the right track. So you don't end up with an end product before you've given your feedback. So we got feedback on the sitemap to understand kind of the structure of the site. And then it goes into the wireframing, where clearly there's going to be some really good detailed feedback just from a functional point of view and starting to understand where content is going to flow. What's the step after that?
So after that, you can start to actually get into putting some clothes on the mannequin, if you like. So you've got your wireframe, you've decided...
Because of flesh on the bones.
Exactly, flesh on the bones. And then you can start to look at, if there's an existing brand, we can start to apply that. We can start to apply colours. And there is some, if the client is open, there's some room for movement at that stage. If they've not done a website before, to maybe add some colours to their palette or add a second or third typeface to their library.
And this is where potentially modifying that style guide that we spoke about earlier is a good opportunity.
Most small companies, they either won't have a style guide at all, or they'll just have one or two pages that shows what the logo is and shows like a colour and black and white version. So it's a great chance to put some rules around what is your most important asset, your website. At that early stage, and then it helps if you do modify the site or expand it, if you've got those core building blocks that you can always refer back to.
And so we're talking about the wireframing and then going to the design phase, so we know what it's going to look like. And obviously we take it for granted that we're designing that mobile first, as well as desktop, almost in symmetry, but focusing on mobile first. So what's the end output? The client can actually see what their site's going to look like before they start investing in the actual development phase.
So what happens, for a small site, we might design every single page so you can see what it's going to look like. You then look at those visuals and say, can we change this, can we change that? So it's a chance to feedback on how it's going to look.
And of course, it's much easier to make changes in design phase rather than it actually being developed.
It's easier to move things around when you're designing things rather than when you're actually building the live pages, where it can be, it's like the butterfly effect. A small change here can affect something elsewhere.
Fantastic.
So it's good that the customers go on that stepped journey.
Awesome. So that's obviously the design phase for the journey, and we'll speak to a development specialist later to take us down the journey of the development phase of a website. So just to recap, so we're saying lock in a sitemap, understand the flow of content through your pages, wireframing to get a real good understanding of the different page layouts and the function flow before stepping into the next phase. Third and final phase would then be to put flesh on the bones and actually to then build it out in terms of all the colours, the features, the full design and the layout. And then sign off on that before committing to the development phase.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just especially as a small business, if you don't have any knowledge of this area, you look at a website and go, that's great, but it's not just about making text look pretty. It's about how you organise your text, how you write your text, how you pair that up with your images, how you use colour, and it's good just to go through those things one step at a time.
Yeah.
It's a pleasant journey to be taken on, and by involving the client at every stage, they feel more involved, rather than just taking their content and building something. It's
Thank you very much, Justin.
Thank you.